Hey there everybody, Travis Bowman here. I'm a fingerstyle guitar player and retro video game nerd. Let's do a video about these video game shelves that you can find on Amazon and Wayfair and stuff like that, and talk about whether or not they're going to be worth it for your setup in your video game collection. Obviously, these are not just designed for video games. You can have CDs and DVDs and Blu Rays and all that good stuff too. But for this specific video, I'm going to be talking about whether or not they're going to be good for a video game collection, which, you know, DVDs and a lot of video game cases are the same size, so it really shouldn't be that big of a difference anyway. So throughout the course of this video, I'm going to give you more shots of this actual media stand that I have here. I don't have the brand name. I can't tell you exactly what it is because I got it secondhand off of the Facebook Marketplace, but these are pretty much, for the most part, around the same sort of situation, give or take, you know, the width and the height and everything like that. But this particular one is about as tall as me, and I'm 6'4", so it is quite a large media center. However, you can get ones that are really, really small, and they just kind of take up a little bit of space in the corner of the room. Obviously, you know your space and the measurements of that. You're going to have to figure all that stuff out when you're looking at buying one of these things, whether or not you have the space for it. If you're a fan of my channel, then odds are you've probably seen my video game room tour video. In that video, I had a different kind of shelf over here that was more designed for books, like a bookshelf, that sort of thing. And for the most part, it worked great. I had my entire original Xbox collection up there, which is quite a few games. However, I was never completely satisfied with the way that my games were displayed in that video because they're all over the place. You know, I wanted something a lot like this so I could have every single one of my games of all different platforms and all different eras in one spot, so I know where everything's at and I don't have to go around the room in case I wanted to grab a different game, that sort of thing. Now, these shelves are really awesome if you have a fairly large collection of all different varieties of games that you might want to display. As you can see just up here on the top row, I've got the Wii U, I've got the Nintendo Switch, I've got Sega Genesis games which fit really nice, even with these little tabs up here that were used back in the day to display them on store shelves. I've got some in-box N64 games over there too, and my PS5 collection, and it goes down even further than you're seeing right now. I've got a really good PS2 collection, Sega Dreamcast, PS1, and the largest collection that I have is, of course, the original Xbox, just because they're so darn cheap, and they're awesome, and there's so many great original Xbox games out there. So this might look like a fairly large shelf, and it is as far as the width goes, and the height is pretty tall too. Like I said, I'm 6'4", so I'm just a little bit taller than this guy right here. However, what is really, really nice and compact is the depth. I don't know if you can tell that from this particular angle, but it fits in really nice and snug next to the wall versus that dark cherry bookcase that I used to have in my other video that was right here. So what I really like about this is that it's a compact way to put a bunch of your games or DVDs, whatever, in one spot. On Amazon, you can find stuff like this that's very similar for probably anywhere between $130 upwards of $300, which in my opinion is a little much considering that these honestly are not the best quality out there for a shelf. These were designed to be kind of cheap to begin with. They're made out of MDF or particle board, and they're held together with just a couple of screws. It's really not that great of a sturdy shelf, to be honest with you. And that brings me to my story about this. When I got this secondhand off the Facebook Marketplace, I paid $50 for this, which was a great deal, and it was in pristine condition. However, it's in two pieces. A top piece that sticks into the bottom piece, and the bottom piece has this little part on the floor where it kind of rests there. But I did not realize, because it didn't come with any instructions, this has to be bolted to the wall if you expect it to hold up long term, or even, in my case, short term. Unfortunately, I just wanted to test this out to see if most of my games, or all of them, would fit on it before I made a commitment to it, before I decided whether I wanted to keep it or not. And unfortunately, you're seeing in this picture, I had this all set up, and then it toppled over on the ground. It was a really sad story and completely all my fault. I screwed up big time. I just wanted to put all of my games on here to see if it would fit, and of course they do, and I still have room left over for other games as well. However, I did not bolt this guy to the wall. So right there in the center where these two pieces connect, it was just too much for it to handle, and it split right down the middle. The top part came out, screws came out. It was a nightmare. And all my games, thankfully, are fine. Nothing has been destroyed or anything. I've got a couple of cases that have had some cracks in it or something like that, but it's no big deal. It was a stupid mistake, a very stupid mistake on my part, and I should have known better. So that's why I'm making this video, to let you guys know that if you want something like this, something that's really compact, and it looks nice, you know, you got to admit that it actually looks pretty nice on this wall over here. You're going to have to make a commitment to this and bolt this guy to your wall if you want your game collection to be safe. And unfortunately, like I said, I was stupid and I did not take that precaution. But luckily, I've got my buddy Kevin. My buddy Kevin is a wonderful handyman, and he came over here one night and we Frankensteined this sucker back together, man. And you wouldn't know it looking at it, but it was in pieces and in shambles. But we reinforced the screws. We added all sorts of reinforcement on the back, stuff that you can't see because it's right up next to the wall. But this guy is sturdy. It's not going anywhere. My game collection has been on it for quite a long time now, and I'm really, really happy that we were able to salvage that. So get you a buddy like Kevin, man. Somebody that loves to do handyman stuff. That's his passion, and he's a wizard at it, and I couldn't have done it without him. So big thanks to you, Kevin. You're the freaking man. So on this particular shelf, and again, I have no reference of what it is or where it came from. I tried to look for this everywhere on the internet and I couldn't find the exact one. That's just how things go. This is probably a couple years old at this point. They might not even be making it anymore. However, you can find stuff like this that are very, very similar, if not a carbon copy of what you're seeing right here. And I will get the measurements for this and put that in the description below. So if you like what you're seeing here, like I said, I'm 6'4". This is about how tall it is. I'm standing up pretty straight, and I'm just a hair taller than this media stand right here. If you're interested in something like this, I can put the dimensions and all the specs and stuff in the description for you guys to check out, as well as some alternatives. So I got on Amazon.com and I found shelves that are pretty similar to this. Again, it's not going to be exactly the same sort of situation, but it has measurements on there. You can do your own measuring and figuring out which one's going to be best for your setup. So you can see right here, this is my entire PlayStation 5 collection, and all of these are just your standard size games except for Sifu Vengeance Edition, which is in a larger case. So I'm counting that as 2 games because it's about the size of 2 games smacked into one. But what I have right here are 22 PlayStation 5 games. Now I did some calculations, and if I had every single one of these cubbies filled up with PlayStation 5 games, that would be 528 games. PlayStation 5 games are about the same size as DVDs. Now there is one particular section down here that's just the size of the jewel cases, so your CDs, your PlayStation 1 games, your Dreamcast games, stuff like that. You cannot fit a PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, or DVD style case in those. It's just too small. However, I did some calculations. There's 3 shelves designed for those jewel cases, and that's 84 games on that tier right there with just the jewel cases. So it's not bad. There's a lot of room on here for all sorts of different varieties, and I'm just stoked that I was able to get my entire collection on one shelf in the house. I don't have to go across the room to get PlayStation stuff and back over here to get my Dreamcast stuff. Everything is right here exactly where it needs to be. It looks great in my opinion. I know this is not the best shelf. Like I said, we had to Frankenstein it back together, but it's black. So it's hard to see imperfections, and any of those imperfections are going to be on the sides over here. But for the most part, I'm extremely happy with this. And you can see that the games are kind of, you know, hanging out the side there. They're not going to fall off. Standing up really, really straight, really nice and level. We make sure it was really level. Everything is just fine, and it only pokes out just maybe an inch, these games right here. So if you're looking to get something like this yourself, I have to warn you again, make sure you take the proper precautions. Be comfortable with the fact that you're going to have to bolt this guy to the wall. There's an L-shaped bracket that goes on the top of this thing right here that you can't see. I can't even see it unless I really get on my tippy toes up there. But that L-shaped bracket is on the shelf right here, and this part over there is stuck into the wall, and we bolted that sucker in there. And to be honest with you, I think we could do with a couple more on either side because we've got it right here dead center. But I think it would be probably a good idea to bolt it even further, especially if I tend to want to add some extra games, which I'm sure I will at some point because I do have the room for it. But you know what? As a collector of sorts, I think this shelf will go a long way in keeping me tame with what I want to collect. Because realistically, you know, I'm a 32-year-old man, and that's a lot of games, dude. That's a lot of games. I don't buy games just to buy them and display them. I only want to display them if they mean something to me, or if it's something that I'm really going to take an interest in later on down the road, or even right now. So I'm almost making a promise to myself that if I ever fill this shelf up completely, and again, that's over 530 games, I think, then that should tell me that I should downsize. You know what I mean? I should not have more games than this, because realistically, I'll just never play them. And that's what I'm all about. I want to have things that mean something to me and really good games to play later on down the road. And if this is overflowing with games, then I need to stop what I'm doing and take inventory and sell some stuff. If it's no longer sparking joy, sell that sucker and get something that does spark joy. After you're comfortable with bolting this thing to the wall, you might want to take some other safety precautions to get this exactly where it needs to be in your house and secure it even further. We used longer screws to really kind of tighten this guy down. But, you know, like I said, I screwed up and it toppled over. It was a lot more structurally sound before that happened. That being said, I think it's stronger now than it ever was because of all the stuff that we did. We got these little brackets that we put on the back, and we basically connect the top piece and the bottom piece even further, which is a really, really good idea. Even if you don't do something stupid like me and put all your games on here without bolting it to the wall, you should definitely think about doing that, because that's a lot of games, my friend. I think I've got something around 410 games or something like this on this shelf. That's a lot of weight. That's definitely a lot of weight. So if you're gonna bolt it to the wall, you might as well take that extra step and try to fasten the top piece to the bottom piece a little further if you can. Another thing that should be obvious, but to somebody like me who screwed it up, it wasn't, and that would be when you are putting your games on this shelf, or a shelf that's much like this, start from the bottom up. Because I wanted to see if my Xbox collection would fit on the top, because that's what I'm most proud of. I've got the most Xbox games, and I'm really trying to go for not so much a complete set, but I want to collect every single Xbox game that has that badge that says only on Xbox. I think that would be a really cool mini collection to go for, and I'm almost there. So I had the Xbox games on top, and I think that's what contributed to the toppling over of this thing. I just have too many of them. There's too much weight on the top compared to the bottom, so make sure you take that precaution, start from the bottom up, unless you want this thing to come crashing down. I'd be very curious to know what you guys think about this particular video game setup here, as well as what you guys do for your own setup. How do you store your video games? Are they all over the place, all around the room, or do you try to consolidate it into one nice little corner into your house? I'd be very curious to know the answers to that question in the comment section below. Make sure you check the description if you're interested in getting something like this for your own setup. Just do your own measurements, make sure it's gonna fit. These days you got the cool smartphone option where you can have your phone look in your room and it'll show you the piece of furniture that you're trying to purchase. It'll show you what it looks like in your room. So don't make a mistake and get the wrong thing. Make sure you know what you're looking for. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope it helped you guys out, and I'll catch you at the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.